What's going on, guys? Welcome to another video. So it's been a little bit of a time since I actually put a video out for you guys. Now, even though you guys haven't been seeing anything coming up onto YouTube, it doesn't mean that I've been doing nothing here at home. I've been very busy, especially with all of my cars. So I made a list on my phone of all the things that I've done in the meantime because I've gotten pretty busy with the Accord, the Mini, my little brother a little bit with his car, and also the Z. So let me go through and we're gonna start off with working on the Accord. So the Accord, if you guys saw from the previous video that I posted, I showed you guys how to install a bike rack / trailer hitch mount for your car. So it has a 1 1/4 inch, I believe, inch receiver on the bottom. I can put my bike rack on it, and that's the main reason why I got it for this car. I don't have any two-door vehicles, and because of that, I needed to make it a little bit more practical. None of my cars I could put my bike in, even if I remove the wheels, so that was my solution to that problem. Next up, the window tint. So the window tint on my Accord, it used to be a 15% carbon tint. Now, it was fading. I had the tint on the car for about 8 years now, or give or take. And I swapped it out because it was getting to be very clear. So because carbon tint degrades over time, it'll eventually become clearer and clearer, which basically makes the tint pretty much useless. So I took it all off and I replaced it with the same tint that I have on my Mini, the same tint my little brother has on his car, and the same tint I have on the Z. Now this time around, I went to Insel Tint, the same place that I now go to for all of my window tinting stuff. They're located in St. Catharines, and they did a killer job. I went with ceramic tint, 70% up front, 10 on the sides, and 5 in the rear. It's pretty dark, it's nice. The interior of the car doesn't get baked, which is really sweet, especially in the summer. And yeah, it's a pretty nice upgrade, I gotta say. Next up, painted the brakes. So the brake calipers on the Accord, if you remember, at one point they were red. I switched them out to black when I did the blacked out taillights and everything. Now, I didn't really love the look of it because I like a little bit of contrast, and well, I realized that I like contrast, so I went back to what it used to be. So we did red. So it looks like this. It's got the Advic sticker on it, ARP hardware, and fresh brake pads. Now, while I was at it, I also took the rear brakes apart, put some refreshed rotors in there, put pads in, and it's all looking pretty damn nice. Brake's pretty good, and for a daily, I can't complain with this setup. Now, I wouldn't exactly call this a trackable setup. So the brake pads that I have are EBC yellow stuffs. They're good for the street. They're good if you want to beat on it, pretty much as hard as you want on the street. But when it comes to really high temps and tracking, that's where it starts to fall short because I had those brake pads on my Mini. Now I'll get into that in a little bit. Let me first finish up with the Accord. So I also lowered it. Now I know this doesn't exactly look as low as some cars out there, but given that this is my daily, I think it's pretty low. It's decent. It's got about a 1 inch or a 1 finger gap up front and 1.5 in the rear. It looks pretty good. I lowered it a tiny bit, not too much, but just enough so that the tire gap wasn't too noticeable. Now, while I was at it, I also installed some spacers up front. I put a 10 mil there, and I bought new rear 20 mil spacers back there. I couldn't find silver ones to match, but they're gonna have to do. These are forged spacers. Everything that I'm gonna be talking about today, guys, is gonna be found in the description box. So if you guys wanna find these parts, you can. Next up, we changed some things inside the car. So coming in here, if you guys remember, I had, / still kind of have, a carbon fiber wheel. So I have the carbon fiber trim pieces, but I also had carbon up here, and I had this section and this section reworked. So I added a little bit of bolstering. I made the entire thing a little bit bigger as I wrapped it, or I got it wrapped in a black leather, and the stitching was done in red. Now, I swapped it back for the stock wheel, but I'm keeping this trim just to see how it is because the leather and everything kind of matches the rest of the interior. But I think I'm actually gonna be parting ways with the other wheel, the carbon one. So if you guys are interested, let me know. Inside the car, through here, you'll be able to see that the dash looks a little bit different too. So the regular Honda Accords don't come with this dash. So the dash in here, it's all blue dials, blue gauges, blue LEDs, but as you can tell, it's got the automatic, the gear selector in the center, even though my car is a manual. So this came out of an Acura, no, that's a lie, it came out of a Honda Accord Cross Tour. Now, the problem with that is that you can only go with a front wheel drive model if you want to swap it into here. If you have a manual, you're gonna have to probably get like a piece of tape or something and cover that. Now, whatever you do, do not pull the gauges or the dials off and try and re-gauge it and, you know, try to do some work on the backside because typically the gauges never like to reset back to normal. Hence why the gas gauge is down here. Now, I don't have the key with me, but when you turn the car on, it doesn't exactly go back up to normal. You have to literally push it back up. So I'm gonna try and see if I can find another Honda Accord Cross Tour cluster. Now on top of that, the wires that you see here are for my K-tuner, along with why this panel is not exactly hooked up. Looks a little bit stupid, but the reason why I took it out is because I had an issue with the LEDs. They weren't exactly working as properly designed. So I got it sent out to K-tuner. They sent out me a replacement unit, and it all works good. I'm in the middle of reflashing the software that's on it so that I can install a burble tune on the Accord. I made it myself. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. I know you wouldn't be able to see this easily from the driver's side, so that's why I'm in the passenger seat. Now up here I have my new dash cam from Vantru. This has GPS built into it up top. It records in full 4K, as you can kind of see on the bottom if it'll focus. 4K Ultra HD. It's got really nice video. I'm probably gonna make a video about it in the future. Let me know if you guys are kind of sick of the dash cam videos, but this is a very cheap, very good, inexpensive 4K dash cam. Doesn't break the bank. This is a one-way dash cam, so it only records forwards. I have another one that is not from Vantru, but it records forwards and backwards. That's 1080p. I'm gonna try them out, see which one I like best, but as it stands right now, I'm very impressed with this one. So that's pretty much everything that I've done to the Accord recently. Still drives great. It's got 240,000 on the odometer. AR1 tires are great. Suspension is a little bit stiff. Considering this is my daily, I might change out the springs to something a little bit softer, or I might change the damping a little bit. I haven't quite played around with it too much, but I want to see if I can get this to the track before the end of this season, because I want to get a baseline as to how much power this thing makes and everything, what kind of lap it can put down before I do the swap to it. Now, that's enough for the Accord. Let's talk about the Mini. Okay, so before I actually bring you out to the car, let me show you something that I took off the car. So when I brought my Mini to the racetrack last time, I had the stock JCW Brembo brakes on the car. I had slotted rotors with EBC yellow stuff brake pads, and as you can tell, these things, they're decent for street, but they definitely don't hold up to extended track use. So these things disintegrated once you get them too hot. This is also with my JCW front brake duct kit that's helping the brakes cool down a bit. So what I did is I took off the stock calipers, both front and rear, or sorry, just left and right. I rebuilt the calipers, so I've got new seals, new everything inside of them. I basically restored the brake rotors so that they could be sold with these, and I also have a set of yellow stuffs that are meant for the street. That are meant for this caliper. So if you guys are interested and you guys want to, maybe look at this kit, send me an email, because these things aren't going to be of any more use to me because I installed something a little bit better. So on the Mini, I have a different big brake kit, and this big brake kit is larger. It's got a two-piece rotor. You can't really see on this side. I'll go to the other one. It's got a two-piece rotor. It's got a 320 by 30 mil two-piece non-floating rotor. This is from a company called VMAX. Now the pads that come with this kit are a standard street pad. So they're gonna be decent on the street, but they're not exactly meant for track use either. Now that's why I'm also upgrading these pads to EBC RPX pads. Now these are a track dedicated pad, so I'm not gonna have any real issues with overheating them because they're meant for much higher temperatures. So this should be able to get me a lower lap time, because if I can brake later and brake harder, I can accelerate more and go faster in the straights. It's all about maintaining a higher average speed on the track. As for the lap times for the car, if you guys remember last year, I did a 127 with the larger turbo, narrow body setup with 215 Bridgestone RE71R tires. It was a pretty decent time. I didn't really get the car too sorted out yet, but after going to the track again with this smaller turbo, wide body kit, wider tires, different shifter, and a couple other things, I was able to shave off another 4 seconds off my time. So I'm down to a 1:23. Now with this big brake kit, with my suspension sorted, and I'm gonna be playing around with tire pressures a little bit more, I wanna see if I can shave off another 2 seconds at minimum before I start doing more mods to it. Because, well, winter's gonna be coming soon, and if it means that I can shave off a couple more seconds now, I can compare it to next year after I've done more mods to it. This car is never gonna be done. So still working on the exterior. I'm running still a square setup, so 235 tires front and rear with a 17 by 8.5 inch wheel. I'm probably gonna be changing that up. I wanna see if I can run a reverse staggered setup. So a 17 by 9 up front and a 17 by 8 in the rear. That's gonna help the Mini's back end rotate more so I can go faster around turns. On another note, I changed out the taillights to full LED aftermarket ones. These things look super nice. So because these little inner parts of the Union jack, they're a little bit different design, so because these are full LED, they stay on, and when you press the brake pedal, they turn on more. The turn signal is the vertical bar and the horizontal one here, and it looks super nice. Jump into the interior. I've done a bunch of mods in here too. So you guys saw the Sparco seats that I put in a while ago. Super nice. These are Recaro pull positions, passenger and driver, as you guys can tell. But my latest addition to it is going to be the harnesses. So these are Sparco harnesses. These are 4 points. They use a traditional seat belt, so it's very easy to get in and out of. While I was installing this, I knew that the stock belts have a sensor to indicate if the driver's seatbelt or passenger seatbelt is on and off. I crimped it and wired them together so it would basically trick the computer. And I also installed a Detroit-tuned floor mat sensor in the car on the passenger side, so the car would always think that there's someone in there. The main purpose for that is so that if someone is sitting inside there and they have the seatbelt on, I'm not gonna be getting a warning light. Another mod from Sparco is this full Alcantara Sparco steering wheel. Now this is a little bit smaller than the OEM wheel and the OEM or the mini JCW Alcantara and leather steering wheel. This feels so much better. So it's very thick, as you guys can tell. It's got a little bit of squish to it, so it's like a firm aftermarket race wheel. It's a lot lighter, horn works. I have the Sparco wheel hooked up with a Momo hub. And also on the inside, if you guys remember, I had a red shift knob for the cooler work shifter. I switched it out to a black one because I wasn't really feeling the red. The red that it was didn't really match anything else on the car. But it's definitely full race car inside of here. I've got the cage mounted up in the back with these race quip 3 loom ties or 2 loom ties. I can't remember what they're called, but these are a race quip part for the belts, because these belts are designed to mount behind the driver's seat in the back, basically on the floor. So if you guys want to mount it to a cage, you're gonna need something like that. I'll link all that in the description box. As for the interior though, I want to take out more weight, so I want to take the door panels off, maybe some of the dash, headliner for sure. I want to try and remove as much weight as I can from at least the front portion of the car, because I'm pretty much working with a 62-38 weight distribution, which isn't exactly ideal if you want to track your car. So for that reason, I want to take out more stuff from the front, and I might even swap out the hood that's made out of steel for a carbon fiber one. It's also going to have a little bit of venting here and there, so that should help with performance too. So after taking this Mini to the track a couple times, it's honestly pretty surprisingly reliable. So given all the mechanical stuff and upgrades that I've done to the engine and transmission over the past couple years, this thing has been bulletproof at the track. The only issues that I have had is brakes overheating. I have a lower control arm that needs replacing, but that's not a big deal. That's a $60 part. The actual turbocharger, the built engine, the built head, the transmission, it's all perfectly fine. I'm running Motul 5W30 engine oil with an oil cooler up front, and I also in the transmission am running Motul fluid, but it's a gear oil. I'm running 75W140. It's a blue thick fluid. It's the same fluid that I have inside the differential in my Z. So it's meant for high temps and it holds up perfect. I love this thing. That's pretty much everything as of now. Maintenance is the one thing that I want to stay on top of, and maybe a couple more fine-tuning things here and there for the Mini, and I'll be pretty much set. But that's not it for the video. I've got some other things to talk about. So this is my other car. It's a 2014 370Z. It's pretty much full bolt-on as is. I have another set of headers that are coming in for this car that are full, equal length, long tube, that are much better designed than the ones that I have in the car. Now, they are a little bit more expensive, but they are insanely high quality. Have you guys heard of the company PPE? Take a look at them if you haven't. I'll have an install video when I get the headers, but that's gonna be going on this car, and I wanna break the 340 wheel horsepower mark for this car while staying NA. Now, while I was at it, I also swapped out the exhaust system here. So this now is a Greddy Evo GT full 3-inch to 2.5-inch stainless steel exhaust system, and this is a lot less restrictive than the old NVIDIA catback that I was running on the car. It's a little bit louder, so that's one thing to note. The NVIDIA did have a very nice sound, but this is a very high-end, high horsepower catback exhaust system, especially while keeping it basically around $1,000. I've got some carbon fiber goodies going on this car too, so I'm gonna be changing up the outside of the car. That's one thing that I haven't really done with most of my vehicles. I haven't really touched the outside for that much. So the outside front bumper is gonna be getting modded a little bit. I've got some carbon going on the side. I've got something going on in the rear, and it's gonna look super good. It's not gonna look from the outside like a base model or Touring Sport 370Z. It's gonna get a little bit of a pizzazz to it. In addition to those parts, I'm also gonna be changing out some things that I already kind of changed before. So I did replace the rotors and pads in here for EBC red stuff pads and Z1 two-piece rotors. Now what I'm going to be doing is I think I'm going to be running the stock rotors for now with a dedicated track pad, both in the front and rear, just to kind of get an idea as to how the car feels. And then if I like the brake pads, I'll swap them out and maybe I'll take the red stuff pads out. So the red stuff pads that I have inside each of these calipers is a street pad. They make very low dust, which is really nice, but at the same time, they aren't exactly as capable as a track pad. So considering I don't drive this inside the winter, or actually my Mini for that matter too, a track pad would probably be pretty beneficial, especially after doing the other mods to the car. Now, last but not least, something else is going to be happening down here. So inside this differential here is my stock pumpkin. So whenever you have a difference in speed inside the diff, the fluid that's found inside of here, not the differential fluid, there's another fluid, it thickens up and it makes the differential act kind of like a solid diff where it's welded. Now, that's a decent kind of differential. It's okay for street use, but if you ever beat on your car or if you take it to the track, you're going to realize that that is a very big weak point. Now, for that exact reason, I'm swapping out the pumpkin inside there for one from Nismo. Nismo has a clutch type differential and it's also tunable. Now that's going to be coming in, hopefully it comes in sooner than later. It was ordered from Japan. And once I swap out this differential, what I'm going to do is going to be swapping out the bushings inside the differential as well, along with the subframe. So everything's going to be upgraded and this is going to be able to put the power down very nicely to these super sticky 285 tires. So when I built my first car shelter, I had that set up basically right over here. It was on the driveway and it was a little bit intrusive because I wasn't really allowed to drive my car in, around, and into this garage because the tent was over there. It was a kind of a pain in the butt because you had to basically do like a 5-point turn to get in and around the tent. As of this year, myself and my brother, I had my tent there, my brother had his right there. We both moved them, took them fully apart, moved them to back there, and it's gonna give us a little bit more space. Now, the reason why we moved them back there is because we have more space, it looks a little bit nicer, but we also had to do some other things. So this here is now all dirt underneath. Now, if it rains, all this dirt is gonna get humid, and that humidity can come up when it evaporates. So in order to keep the cars from getting destroyed over the winter time and basically made like this as a sauna, what we had to do is we installed tarps on the bottom side. We have 8 skids as a foundation. We then put plywood over top to basically make a base. And then we put another tarp over top so that the car, let's say if it leaks or if we do anything to it, it's not gonna actually destroy anything else underneath. So we have that set up. We've got 2 little stops on the back to prevent the car from going too far back. And the weight of this is being put on these 2x10s, and that's pushing down on the actual frame of the tent. So because this tent technically isn't screwed in or mounted in any way, if it gets really windy, it could in theory move. Now with the weight of the car on the tent, it's not going anywhere. This has pretty much been set up the similar way. The only difference now is the foundation, but the car's weight on those pieces of wood has pretty much been like that since I built this 2 years ago. So after snowstorms, windstorms, hailstorms, and everything like that, the tent, this Tempo car shelter, is still holding up perfectly to this day. Now the reason why we have a second one is because my brother was impressed with the quality from this, so he was like, okay, if your car is safe in there over a winter and some windstorms, I guess mine's gonna be no different. So over the course of the winter, I'm not really gonna have any issues with the shelter coming down or my car's getting damaged because I know for a fact that it's going to be safe. Now, the last thing to cover is going to be something that I've been working on for a while that I've kind of been getting a little bit discouraged about because I've been running into issues. So my K24 engine build. If you guys know, I'm building a K24 that's gonna be able to make 300 wheel horsepower without going boosted. So I'm gonna be running a fully forged bottom end, crankshaft, connecting rods, pistons, a built cylinder head, tons of aftermarket parts, and this whole build is going to be going into my Accord. Knock on wood. Now, the reason why I'm saying that I'm getting discouraged by this is because when I sent all this stuff out to my machinist, I got them to machine everything. So the top end, the bottom end, deck, everything. They were also able to help me make the modification for the engine block so that I can run the K24 A2 cylinder head on the K24 Z3 bottom end. The coolant port is a little bit different. So they were able to do that, no problem. That's not the issue. What they did kind of mess up on is the actual assembly. So they torqued everything to spec. They used the proper like silicones and the oils and stuff like that when you're building an engine, but they forgot to gap the piston rings properly. So I need to take it apart. I need to gap it all myself. And at this point, I'm going to be showing you guys how to do all of that. Now, I haven't done this before, so you can kind of take this with a grain of salt, but I'm gonna be going through this whole process, showing you guys what I'm going to be doing, and if it works, terrific. But as is, the stock rings inside the kits, when you guys buy pistons, forged pistons, they're meant to be ringed and gapped and all that stuff before being installed into the engine. So that wasn't done, so I need to do that. Yeah. Now, this might be a little bit of a soft topic for you guys. I don't know if you guys are gonna probably be down with me on this idea, but I'm thinking about getting rid of the Accord. Now hold on, hear me out. So my Accord has been my daily driver for the last probably 10 years now. I've winter driven this every single year that I've owned it. Since it was made and since the first owner of this car owned it, he also did the same thing. Now, with that being said, this car's got 240,000 kilometers on it. I had stones and rocks thrown at my car, so there's some marks on the body of it. I have a little bit of rust coming through. I have a little bit of paint coming up. I have some imperfections here and there, and I think I want to swap this out for a different car that I can still use that K24 for. So take a look at this. This is the rear fender. I think it might have been in an accident or something, I don't know, but there's rust coming through. And I'm thinking about repairing all this stuff, but when I actually think about the numbers and everything, it's gonna cost me multiple thousands of dollars to keep this on the road, where I can swap this out for a 9th gen Civic Si, which will be not only lighter, but also more capable. So considering all my cars that I own are 2-doors, I think I need something a little bit more practical than this. The Accord's been great to me to this day, but I'm looking at replacing it with a 9th gen Si. I've been looking at the prices and different options and stuff like that, and considering that I know that I'm gonna be swapping the engine, well, I don't really need something that's really low K. As long as the body of the car is in good condition, that's fine with me. Let me know if you guys are down for this idea. Because if I can get rid of the Accord and replace it with a 9th gen Civic Si, that means that I'll not only have something more practical, it's gonna be faster in essence. So a 300 horsepower engine inside this car in a Civic. The Civic is gonna be faster because it weighs 400 pounds less. You know what that also means? More mods. So if I were to pick up that car, I'd have to do coils, brakes, suspension, all that kind of stuff that this car already has, but it's all gonna be new. I'll probably replace it with better stuff, and we'll go from there. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys stay tuned with me for all this stuff. I've got a lot of work ahead of me. I have a lot of work to do before winter. I have a lot of work to do during winter because I've got a bunch of cars to work on. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for being patient with me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.